Hey there, creepy peeps. Welcome to my channel. If you are new here, welcome back. If you are returning, it's quarantine and chill time again, this time for Amazon Prime Video. Really quick before we get into what I consider hidden horror gems, I did make a playlist for all of these like hidden gem videos I've been doing since I've been in lockdown, so I'll link it up here if you missed any of those videos. So far I've done Netflix, Shudder, and Tubi. We still got a couple more streaming services to do after this, so don't worry, these aren't done anytime soon, but if you need some movie night inspiration, you should check out that playlist. Okay, let's get into the suggestions. So the first thing I want to recommend on Amazon Prime is actually a documentary. That is Haunters: The Art of the Scare, which follows 3 extreme haunted house attractions, including the infamous McKamey Manor. I think I said that right. McKamey or McCamey, I can't remember. Most of you, I'm sure, I love going to haunted attractions during spooky season. Hell, I love going to spooky attractions anytime. I even went to a Valentine's Day haunt this past February. I'll link that video up here if you haven't seen that. But I personally draw the line at these extreme haunts where you usually have to sign some sort of release form that allows the actors to touch you, grab you, or in the case of McKamey Manor, straight up torture you. Like, watching horror movies is cathartic because you can face your fears in a safe environment, and these extreme haunts are just, they're too far over the line for me. But I will tell you, it is fascinating to watch this documentary and to see like the consumer experience side of it. Like, you get to see people who have gone through the haunt and talk about like why they did it and if they regret it now that they've actually done it. But you can also hear from the creators of these haunts and a lot of the legal stuff that they go through as well for, again, just kind of straight up torturing people. The next movie I want to recommend is The Innkeepers, which follows 2 employees of a New England hotel who decide to investigate the various stories of hauntings and ghosts, but their digging unearths an evil presence. So this movie is from House of the Devil director Ty West, and I think that's the more popular of his movies. But if you liked that sort of slow burn, mumble gore kind of movie, you should watch The Innkeepers. It's a really simple premise done extremely well. And sometimes, you know, not all the time, but sometimes simple is just better. It also helps that Sarah Paxton, who plays the protagonist Claire, is a really, really likable character, which if you're like me and vibe with the characters more than anything, it's super important because as soon as you care about the characters, as soon as anything spooky or bad happens to them, you get scared for them, and that's what makes watching movies like this so scary. Next up is kind of a silly one, and that is the Funhouse Massacre, which takes place, well, in a haunted attraction where 6 of the world's scariest psychopaths have escaped to. They unleash terror on the Halloween crowd who think it's all part of the act. Like I said, this is kind of a silly one. It's not the best movie ever made by far, but I wanted to throw this one in there because I've seen a lot on social media, Quarantine-ween? I don't know what it's being called. There are a lot of people in self-quarantine that are posting a lot of like Halloween stuff to just have some fun, and I love that. And this movie is a Halloween horror movie, but it brings you a lot of Halloween joy. It's kind of silly. Of course, there are some cool and unique kills. You get some cameos, of course, from like Robert Englund. We love a good Robert Englund cameo. The next one I want to suggest is The Woman in Black, where a young solicitor travels to a remote village where he discovers the vengeful ghost of a scorned woman is terrorizing the locals. Y'all have probably seen this one, although I know it doesn't get talked about a lot, which I don't know why. I think it's a pretty solid ghost, like gothic haunted house ghost movie. I like it. I think it shows the perfect amount of the titular character, our scary woman in black, and doesn't overdo it like the sequel, in my opinion. I love the gothicness of the movie. I love seeing Daniel Radcliffe in something other than Harry Potter. Not that I dislike Harry Potter. Plus, it's kind of like a quasi stuck at home movie, because if you've seen the movie already, this house where the woman in black haunts, it's very isolated out on the moors, and when the tide comes in, you're basically on an island in this house and you can't go anywhere until the tide changes again. So it's like a half stuck at home movie. I know a lot of y'all love slashers, so I threw in Chopping Mall to this list. In the movie, a group of mall employees stay behind after closing to throw a party in one of the stores. However, the mall goes into lockdown before they can get out, and the robot security system malfunctions and they go on a killing spree. Cheesy? Yes. Corny? Absolutely. Barbara Crampton? This is another silly one, which I've just been very into lately, watching silly horror comedies because they're a great distraction. And as somebody who has worked in a mall before, it's very, very fun to watch this and imagine that as like happening in my mall right now, because our mall is on lockdown and all closed. So I don't know, it's just fun to imagine that happening. Hey, more Barbara Crampton, but in a completely different setting. The next movie I want to recommend to you is We Are Still Here, which follows an older couple who move into an old New England house to find out the spirits that reside there have woken up and demand a sacrifice. I don't want to spoil everything about this movie because I think it's one that you need to just watch, so I won't go into details, but I will say it is one of the more unique haunted house movies that I've ever seen. It is a little bit of a slow burn. There's a lot of buildup, but the end is very crazy, very gory, very violent, so I promise it's worth the buildup. And it just proves that Barbara Crampton is still a fox. So there's that. Of course, I had to include a South Korean movie on this list, so I'm going to suggest to you The Quiet Family, which follows a family that opens a mountain inn where their first guest commits suicide. After that, suddenly all of their guests start suffering horrible fates as well. I do feel like I have to mention, just as a warning, there is a sexual assault scene in the movie that I'm not the biggest fan of, because the rest of the movie is so silly and goofy. I feel like that part kind of doesn't really fit. But the rest of the movie I really, really enjoyed. It's super funny. I just love that. I don't even know how to describe it other than like South Korean humor. I don't think that's a thing. It's just humor. But I watch a lot of South Korean movies and a lot of South Korean shows, and the type of humor is just the same. I don't know how to classify it, but I really like it. And it also stars Song Kang-ho, who you might remember starred in Parasite and The Host. We stan. Clearly, I am in the mood to watch silly things because I put Zombievers on this list. It doesn't take much summarizing for this movie. The title kind of says it all. It's a movie about zombie beavers. If you need something just mind-numbingly stupid to distract you from the real-life horrors going on right now, this is the movie to do that. It's not a cinematic masterpiece by any means, but it is a great distraction movie. This one in particular, I would recommend gathering some friends like on Skype or on Discord or something and watching this as a group. I know you can't really like actually get together now, but it's definitely best in a group setting. Second to last one here is a bit of a dark one, and that is Always Shine, which follows two actresses who have experienced differing degrees of success. They take a trip to reconnect after years of competition, but they discover that their friendship has deteriorated into forced conversations and deep-seated resentment. I know, it sounds like a real bummer, but I promise there's so much more to this movie than what I just described. If you were like me and were wildly disappointed by Sofia Takal's take on Black Christmas, watch this. It's also directed by Takal, but I feel like it just goes so far beyond what Black Christmas tried to do, and it does it so much better. It's just a really great kind of female empowerment kind of movie. It shows a very real female relationship. I will say friendship, by the way. I feel like that's important to note because that is wildly different from a romantic relationship. But it does so much more in the female empowerment department than Black Christmas ever did. That remake, by the way, not the original. Love the original. The original was great. And finally, a found footage movie. I want to recommend Willow Creek, which follows a couple who camp out in the wilderness to make a movie about finding Bigfoot. It's another slow burn-ish kind of movie, but it's a really creepy setting. And it's super unsettling because, you know, there are a lot of people that believe that Bigfoot is real. And, you know, we don't really have a lot of evidence to contradict that. So until I have solid proof that Bigfoot is not a thing, Bigfoot has to be a thing. So it does add a little bit of realism to the movie that makes it super creepy. I highly, highly, highly recommend watching this movie in the dark with headphones, especially. If nothing else, watch it with headphones, because there is an 18-minute long scene during one of the nights that they're camping out and they're in the tent, and the sounds that they hear outside of the tent are so frightening. And maybe they're just extra frightening to me because I don't particularly like camping, and being out in the middle of the woods in the middle of nowhere really freaks me out, especially when you're hearing noises like they hear in the movie. It's just a cool bit of filmmaking too. I think I wrote a whole I wrote a whole third of an essay about that scene, mostly in particular, when I was getting my degree in film studies, because it's just a really cool moment. So there you have it. Those are my recommendations for some hidden horror gems that you can find included with Amazon Prime. If you have any horror suggestions that you can find included with Prime, also let us know in the comments, because you know, I need some stuff to watch. Your fellow horror fans might need some more inspiration for things to watch too, so help each other out in the comments. Really quick, I want to thank my creepy patron peeps for their support of my channel. Thank you guys so much. If you want to find out the perks of being a creepy patron peep yourself, you can follow that link in the description. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps me out. And you can also subscribe, become a creepy peep today if you are new here, or if you've been lurking for a while. I'll talk to you guys very, very soon. Until then though, stay strange. Bye.